So transformation group activity, GA. In this group activity, they had the following as the transformation questions. For example, one of the questions was question 1, saying that write an equation that give us the square root function, which shifted 4 units upward. Very good. So what is the square root function? The square root function is defined this way. Square root function. This is f of x equals to square root of x. This is the definition of square root function. So now question says, well, you have the square root function. You're going to shift it 4 units upward. It means that your new function becomes g of x square root of x plus 4. Remember that the upward shift, if y is equal to f of x plus constant c, for c to be positive, gives us upward shift. If I ask you to write the square root function shifted 4 units downward, you write it as k of x equals to square root of x minus 4. It is downward shift. So downward shift, but since the question says 4 units upward shift plus 4, note that this 4 is not inside the radical. If you write it inside the radical, you get a horizontal shift. Note that if I write it as, for example, I of x equals to square root of x plus 4, it gives me a 4 units shift to the left-hand side. This is horizontal shift. So know the difference between these. The next one that we're interested in is question 8. So question 8 says, apply the following shifts. Let f of x be absolute value of x. It says, first of all, give me a horizontal compression by factor 4. Horizontal compression by factor 4. Since we are dealing with horizontal change, it means that we are changing our x, not the y. So this guy becomes g of x equals to absolute value of 4x. What happens to the graph? So one by one, step by step, we can analyze the graph. Let me write this guy down here so I have enough space to graph. So this is absolute value function, all right? This is my absolute value function, V-shaped graph. The V-shaped graph, absolute value function. Or let me write it a little bit bigger so you see the difference between them. Absolute value function 0, 0, 1, 1, negative 1, 1, and so on. This is my absolute value function. Now it says multiply your x by 4. So if x is 1, my g of 1 becomes absolute value of 4. So when x is 1, my y value is 4. This is the graph of the function. I get -1. For -1, I also get 4. This is compression by factor 4. I'm using the same color for absolute value of 4x. So this is your absolute value of x, and this is absolute value of 4x. Then B, the second step says, horizontal shift to the left by 3 units. Horizontal shift to the left by 3. So again, what I'm doing, I'm taking this graph and I try to shift it for 3 units to the left-hand side. Shift it to the left-hand side. Okay. So shift, horizontal shift to the left. It means that I have to make changes to my x. Let's see. I'm creating a new function, h of x. H of x, be careful here, absolute value of 4. I'm changing my x, so I have to use parentheses. To the left-hand side, x plus 3, close parenthesis. So again, take a look at your graph. This is the graph of absolute value of x, which is a V-shaped graph, 1, 1, -1, 1. So this is my V-shaped graph, my absolute value. I multiply my x by 4 to get a compression by 4. So this is my second graph, 1 and 4. 1 and 4. It means that it passes through this way. -1 and 4. This is the compression by 4, which gives me this new function. Now I'm taking this blue function and shift it 3 units to the left-hand side. So what happens here? Shift 3 units to the left. So let me use the same color. -3. I'm taking this graph, this V shape, blue V shape, and shift it 3 units to the left. So this is going to be my new function. Transforming this to this new function, absolute value of 4 times x plus 3. There we go. And finally it says, now give me a vertical shift upward 1 unit. Vertical. Shift up 1 unit. So now I'm taking this guy and shifting it 1 unit upward. So it becomes like I of x, which is absolute value of 4, x plus 3 plus 1 unit. I'm not changing my x anymore. I'm changing my y. Shift, vertical shift, change in your y. This is my y, and I'm changing my y, moving y 1 unit upward. So this is my new function. And this is my final function. This is the transformation to create absolute value of 4x plus 3, close the absolute value, plus 1. This is my final answer. Very good. So let us take a look at question 10. Question 10 says, well, you have the following graph. What is the transformation? So the graph given to us is like this. It says, hey, you have your x-axis, you have your y-axis, and you have your x squared function. So I have x squared function. This is my parabola, x squared, and your final answer needs to be this guy here. So I have 3 and 1, 2, 3, and -2. What is the transformation that we have? Okay, let's see. What I did is, well, question says, what is this guy? Step 1. In the first step, I'm going to take this function and move it 3 units to the right-hand side. Let us move x squared horizontally to the right. Very good. Okay, horizontally to the right. It means that I have to change my x. So my new function, this is my f of x, let's write down. F is equal to x squared. F of x is x squared. So my new function becomes g of x equals to x minus 3 to the second power. So this is what I'm doing. I'm taking this guy and shifting this 3 units to the right-hand side. So this is g of x, which is x minus 3 to the second. So what is the next step? Next step, I'm going to flip this graph. The reflection with respect to x-axis. What's the meaning of that? It means that I have to multiply my y by a negative sign. So what do I get? I get this guy here. I get h of x equals to minus x minus 3 squared. This guy gives me this graph. This graph here. It's 3 here. This is h of x equals to negative x minus 3 squared. And finally, I want to shift this 2 units downward to get to the final graph that I want to know what that is. So in the last step, step C, shift 2 units downward. So, okay, let me write it down. I of x is equal to negative x minus 3 to the second minus 2. This is this guy. So we started by taking x squared, shifting it horizontally to the right by 3 units. Then we have a reflection with respect to x-axis by multiplying by a negative sign. And then finally, we take this red graph and shift it 2 units downward, which is this green graph.